Hello and welcome to a video guide on Nightmare Pilgrim in Star Wars The Old Republic. So this is my guild doing one of their events where we're going to take on the Nightmare Pilgrim. I'm going to talk you through a bit of what is happening and what we need to do. First thing you'll notice is we have an ops group of 16 people. You want as close as you can get to 16. Do not go over. You will die if you go over. And if you have a group that's smaller and everyone's good, you can also do that. So if you look straight in front of me, you can see somebody hopping around near a glowing blue object. Looks like a lore object. That is how you summon the boss, right over there. So there's going to be two bosses that come out, the dog, which is Thing from the Stars or something like that, and then Nightmare Pilgrim himself, which is like a giant person. You know, I'm just joking here about how sometimes people get themselves killed thinking it's a lore object and summoning a boss instead. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, especially when you're standing there waiting for the boss and someone comes up. So right now, I'm going to take Thing from the Stars. We have 3 tanks. 2 of them are going to take turns doing tank swaps on Thing from the Star, and I'm taking Nightmare Pilgrim, to correct myself. So Nightmare Pilgrim doesn't have too many mechanics. Basically, I just need to face him away from the group, is the main thing, and tank him. Now I'm going to be potentially swapping over towards Thing if one of the other tanks needs to come over here because they got death marks. The other thing that I need to be aware of is when this boss does a knockback, he becomes shielded. Everyone needs to stop doing DPS to make sure that they aren't taking damage and killing themselves from the other 2 mechanics. So if we look at the raid frames, the top 3, or the top row, top of each column is a tank. So the tank that happens to be on Thing, he is going to get a stacking debuff, which especially when Gore comes out, he just got it right now. You can see it's that red-orange kind of explosion-like symbol on the top left raid frame. And when he gets that stacking debuff, it can kill him if Gore goes out, especially during enraged Gore. So you can do tank swaps to make sure that that stack doesn't get too high, and you can also make sure that you interrupt Gore, of course. So as you can see, I don't have too much to do right now. I'm just sitting at the Nightmare Pilgrim, tanking him away from the group. Everybody at the start of the fight. So there we go. We call stop all damage. We call stop all damage. Blood marks are going to go out, and you want to make sure you don't have blood marks. So if you watch, there we go. Blood marks have now gone out, and quite a few people killed themselves because they kept attacking the dog while having blood marks, rather than making sure they switched to Nightmare Pilgrim. So everybody who has blood marks is now going to be on Nightmare Pilgrim, and the other people are just going to have to run back to rejoin the fight in a bit. So you can see I have blood marks myself. It's the leftmost debuff, very dark red with a bit of black there. So I'm making sure that I'm not attacking. The shield went down on Nightmare Pilgrim, so we were able to resume DPSing as soon as that shield goes down. And once you see blood marks have gone out is basically when you resume DPS on the dog. There's basically just a rinse and repeat of that. There's no significant mechanics outside of those few things. So the Gore on the dog, making sure that you're interrupting that, especially during enraged Gore, managing the stacks that you get from tanking the dog so that they don't get too high, and then making sure you don't DPS the dog when you have blood marks, and making sure you don't DPS Nightmare Pilgrim while the reflect shield is up. So there's no real interrupts you need to do on Nightmare Pilgrim. There's no real special defensive. So again, we have to stop here. Everybody needs to stop. Nobody should be attacking. And you should just wait a few seconds to check and see if you get blood marks. One of the other tanks did just get blood marks. So he's actually going to come over and start tanking Nightmare Pilgrim. And then I'm going to move over to the dog. There's the Gore, just interrupted that. I'm going to taunt off you, Lou. So you'll notice that I just took control of the dog from the other tank. That's just because he was getting up there with his 2 or 3 stacks, and I wanted to minimize the number of stacks that tank had. So as you can see, I just got a stack myself of the debuff from the boss. Where's this enraged Gore? It hasn't happened yet. Probably because I don't have enough stacks. This is the enraged Gore attack, and basically he's just going to cast Gore a whole bunch of times in a row. Nobody happens to be interrupting, but as you can see, I don't actually have the debuff, so it's not a problem. It didn't kill me. Lou, you have a mark. One thing that's also important to note is that when players have their blood marks fall off, they want to go back to the dog, so you always want to have as much DPS as possible on the dog. But we just killed the dog, which means that now we're going to be fighting the Nightmare Pilgrim. Yes, very important at this point, if you die, you do not want to walk back and miss getting the boss clear by respawning and not getting back in time. So when the boss is low enough on health, you just want to stay dead, unless somebody actually has a summon to summon you with. So there you go, that was Nightmare Pilgrim. We made that look easy, and the fact that I no longer have a potato computer means that I didn't have horrible performance issues. Have a great day, and I hope you found this useful. Any comments, questions, whatever you want, let me know by pressing that like button, usual YouTube plug, and of course putting those in the comments.